Hey guys, welcome to the first video of 2024. I hope you had a happy new year and a Merry Christmas. I am pretty excited about this video because we're finally going to get the exterior of the house buttoned up. It's been a long time coming. If you follow along on the channel and you remember the garage build, this is the same stuff. It's a steel, 26 gauge steel board and batten clip system that we're putting on the house. Same that we did on the garage. That was my first go at it. We've learned some things. We're going to apply those to the house and hopefully have a smooth install. I've started putting up some drip caps, so let's get right into that and I'll show you the rest of these trim details before we put the panels on. Our first trim detail is this flashing that we put over the Versetta Stone capstone. This is a custom made drip edge that will help when the water hits the siding and runs down. This is going to kick it out away from the wall and prevent the majority of it from running down in behind the stone, which with the Versetta Stone, your wall or your weather barrier is going to see moisture at some point with driving rains because it's not a sealed product. But we want to prevent as much of that water from getting back there as possible. So I'm using a kick-out flashing at the bottom here. This flashing detail I'm treating just like I did the capstone. It's easier for me to start in a corner and get my angles figured out and get my angles cut as opposed to that being the last piece. So we're going to start here, and around the corner here it's going to dead end into the door frame, and to my left it's also going to dead end into a door, so it's easier to cut that last piece nice and square as opposed to the last piece having a square end and an angle. So let's get this angle figured out here, and then I'll show you how I'm doing the trim under the window as well. So I run my piece a little bit long, and I'm going to go ahead and mark this angle here right off the corner. That'll give me the appropriate angle there, and then I'm going to come down here and mark my notch out for my window. Once you get your piece marked out, then it's just a matter of cutting along the lines that you mark. This piece I got kind of lucky because it's easier to seam this capstone trim underneath the window than it is to try to notch it out in between, just because this last cut here that you'll see is real close to that bend, and it's a little bit difficult to get your tin snips in there to make that cut. So what I have to do here is transfer my line over to the back side and then use my snips and cut along the back side of it. If you haven't worked with steel much, I enjoy it, but there is a learning curve to it. When to use your red snips versus your green versus your yellow, how to bend things, and it just takes a little bit of practice. Once you do it, it's not a big deal. You kind of know which one you need, either the red or the green, the left cut or the right cut snips. But this whole process is just a learning curve, and that's the fun, I think, behind the DIY type of stuff, is you're learning as you do this stuff. So I'm using my reds here, and the red snips will cut to the left, your green snips will cut to the right. You can also, if you think about it, as you're cutting, which side is going to be pushed up and which side is going to be pushed down. So that helps you determine which snips to use. Again, with the cut being so close to the bend, it was important to get the right ones. If I tried the green ones, they wouldn't have worked very well. So we get this cut out and then get this piece put up. This is the second half to that corner that you've seen in the previous clip. Plan for a little bit of an overlap. I'm not too concerned with water in this application because I have a double weather barrier underneath, but we want a nice finished look regardless. What I've done here with this corner, nothing too crazy. I have this hem opened here and I just slide it over top of that piece, and then I take this and we'll bend it around the corner. Little mark on that there. little bend to get it started. And then we can finish it. There's our look there. I'm not too concerned about water here because I have the crack and we have our paper underneath, so that doesn't bother me at all. But what I need to do now, I'll just kind of push that down to close the hem up. You can kind of see what this looks like underneath the window here, this little lip. So the water has to blow in here, run all the way back to get down behind. We'll run our J channel down here to stop any water that runs down here from getting back up underneath here. It'll actually force it out away from the window. But that's how we're doing underneath the window trim. I don't do any caulking or anything underneath here either because I want the water to get away. Again, I have my paper double weather barrier underneath, so I'm not too concerned about that, honestly. And we'll seam it right underneath here and we'll keep going. With these vinyl windows, you're gonna see you got just a little bit of a, I don't know what you call it in the mold, but it's kind of melted outside here. So I trim that off both sides. All your corners are gonna have this. So just trim these off and that'll help you get your J channel tight around this corner so you don't have a big gap. I try to prevent as much of a gap as I possibly can around here. These windows also have some screws, so that becomes a point where your J, it kind of pushes out on it and leaves a little bit of a gap there, but I'll show you how I minimize that. Let's get these corners trimmed first and I'll show you the after look. The sharper the knife, the better. Just get your corners trimmed down just like that, and you'll have a nice, that'll allow you to get that J channel nice and tight around the corner. Let's get a piece put up here. Have my pieces of J cut here, and I brought them inside because it's so windy. In order to get a nice tight fit with those screws on the side of my window, I'm just taking this J here and just bending it just a little bit, this back side, bending it a little bit past 90 on the inside angle. It doesn't take much, just a little bit of a bend. Stretch it out there, and that'll allow us to get a nice tight fit. We'll give you a look. See, once we get this up, probably won't be able to do any audio because of the wind, but we'll try to show you the finished product here. Just give it another little quick bend. It's kind of a pain, but it is what it is with the windows. I'm going to take the other side here and do the same, just kind of bend it, the back side out a little bit. Gives you a little bit of a forearm workout, I guess, but this will help. You can kind of see, just give it a little bit of a pull. On the back side. Again, this is why I build my own home. You're not going to find contractors that do this. They're going to get the J channel and they're going to put it up. For me, it's just these little details to go a little extra mile because it's my home. That'll help us get a nice, good look there. Let's get these up and I'll show you what they look like on the window. This next step probably isn't necessary because I have the nail fin taped with the zip system tape, and underneath, before I put the window in, if you follow along on the build, I liquid flashed the opening, the bottom, made kind of like a sill pan on the bottom side. Put your window in, tape over your nail fin, And now just another layer of protection here. I'm using some Lexan silicone clear and just putting it where the nail fin meets the frame on the window. I'm just putting a nice little bead right down along there, around the top, the sides of the window, and then you can set your J channel. That corner of your J will set right in there and create a seal. The caulking won't be, or the silicone won't be visible because it's underneath the J, but it just helps to keep that water from running into that crack and then back behind the J into the wall system. Again, we have the tape there, so it's probably not necessary, but I have the silicone, so I just decided to use it. A little extra insurance there, help things last a little extra longer. And then you just put your J right in there. Cut your J the exact length so it's nice and flush with the top of your window here on the sides, and then you'll see how we do the top here in a minute. And it's about time for my camera to blow over because it was extremely windy. There she goes. Notice here how tight we can get that J even though we have those screws underneath, and we trim the corners, nice tight fit. Let's take a look at this last piece. We're going to put a piece of J along the top of the window, and I do something a little special with the ends to help direct water away from the window. So let's take a look at that. Here's the top piece, and all you need to do is just I cut an inch back inside, bend this tab down, and now this is going to sit on top of the window with these tabs on the outside of the vertical J, and that'll help direct that water down to the J, which goes down to the drip cap and then out over the top of the stone. It's too windy outside for my tripod, so I'm going to put this on, get it fastened, and I'll give you a look at the finished product. Couple of fine points here that I want you guys to be aware of. You can see the top, how it makes a nice transition, and there's the tab bent down into the side J, and notice at the bottom how the side J extends down beyond the window. That forces that water that runs down that J to the outside away from the window. All right, our J channel is done around all the windows and doors. And this next piece that we're going to put up, this next trim piece, is a little bit unique to this type of steel. We have our J here, as you can see. It looks like a J. We also have what they call C channel, which looks very similar to a J, with the exception of it doesn't have a hem on it, on this inside piece, and the color, instead of being on the outside, is on the inside. The C channel is strictly for our corner pieces on this project. I want to show you how this all comes together on the corner, because this is important, because this is where you start your panel. So you want to make sure you get your first piece, your C channel, nice and plumb and in the right location so your corner fits over it. And you also want the C channel on the other end where you're going to end the board and batten steel nice and plumb as well, so that way the seams look nice and symmetrical when you look down them. You don't want your panels running at an angle compared to your corner piece. It'll be very noticeable. So let's show you how we're putting these up and where they go. Nothing too complicated about putting the C channel up. I think if you've ever done vinyl siding, I think this is very similar to what you would do for vinyl siding. The key here is to make sure you get these things plumb. Stay about 3/4 of an inch in from your corner and make sure this thing runs straight. If you have your panels running straight, you want this to run parallel with those ribs. If you don't, it's going to be noticeable because you're going to end your panels, or at least I try to end with the rib inside the C channel. Now you can't put your corner piece on quite yet. It would be nice to put it on, but we're going to have to run some pop rivets on the back side of the C channel to hold the last panel in, because you can't get your clips on it. So don't put those corners on quite yet. The other important thing, at least for me, that I learned with the garage build is keep the C channel up off your bottom drip cap flashing. Keep it up just a little bit. If you run it down tight, it is possible to see a little bit of white. If your corner piece is up just a little bit, you'll see this white underneath. So make sure you leave yourself just a little bit of a gap. It doesn't take much, 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch or whatever, and that'll give you a nice finished look. And do this with all your corners, and we'll come back later and put the final piece on after we get the panels in and get our rivets in. There's our C channel on both sides, and this is a scrap corner piece here. So all you do when you put these on, clip it on that way, and you are good to go. With these steel trim pieces, you can be as fancy as you want to your likings. Since these pieces that I'm doing now, these J-channel pieces, are up underneath the eaves, they're not going to see any weather. They're never going to see any rain. So I'm not concerned about overlapping the pieces and transitioning into each other. So I'm just butting them together, and I think that'll be fine. You're never going to see those little teeny tiny gaps in between them. By the time I get the steel panels up there, that's all going to blend in and you'll never see it. The one thing that I have to be careful of with the siding and these trim pieces, the porches, we don't have the ceiling done yet, and that's going to be a tongue and groove pine board setup. And my first rafter, if you remember when we did the framing, that's kind of my nailing point for the end of these boards. And I can't put this J-channel up there because then I take away my framing member that I want to nail into. So we're going to get all the steel siding done except for above the break in the porch area. We're going to leave both of those open until we get the ceilings done. And in order to do that, I got to run some wiring. So that's going to be a little bit down the road, but I can get 90% of all the steel siding up. And the stuff, honestly, underneath the porch, the subsheathing is never going to see rain either. So I'm not too concerned about that. At least the back porch. The front porch, if it's blowing really, really hard, might get the wall wet behind there, but that's just what I have to do for this project. So it's super windy today. I can't move my tripod around, and you're probably getting some wind noise already with this audio. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this stuff. We'll give you guys a quick look at the trim work at the end. And then the next video, I'm going to stop it there. The next video will be the panels. I wanted to get all this stuff laid out. Yesterday, my wife and I snapped some lines so we could get some measurements, and I ran the takeoff for all the steel yesterday, last night, and placed the order today. And it's about a 2-week, week and a half to 2 week lead time on that. So we're gonna have a little bit of gap in between the videos here. I apologize for not getting this one out soon enough, but work for the new year has just been tremendous and has had me swamped. So I'm glad to get this video out. It's a short one, but it's necessary. The cool thing with this siding project is you can do all of your trim work ahead of time. So I went, ordered the trim, picked it up, installing it, got my measurements. We're gonna order the panels, and we're gonna get the outside of this house finally buttoned up. And then the fun really begins. We're gonna get inside, get the floor system in, get the unvented crawl space system in, get the subflooring in, start building walls, plumbing, electrical, lots of cool stuff to come. We are still not 100% sure on the exact layout on the inside, so we'll see how it goes. But for now, that's all I have for you guys. Give you a little look at the trim. We'll see you on the next video. Quick look at my transition. You can see the tab bent underneath here, overlapping. Tab bent up underneath here, overlapping up under there. This is going to see very little, if any, weather. We're ending it right here because we're going to put our Z flashing here and create a break. This will be a separate siding area from the bottom. It's just going to make it easier running it, and I'll show you how we do that on the next video.